Ni kuunganishe na kikao hicho cha moja kwa moja tupate kupata mahojiano haya kwa njia iliyo safi. Karibu.
The Bible and affirmation depending on your faith.
The Bible. I, Ezekiel Machogo Mbaki, do hereby swear to testify on all matters in question and tell this committee the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Honorable Machogu, welcome to this committee. These are your colleagues. You are with them in the last parliament, I have no doubt. And you, as we'll introduce, you'll find they're all people you've worked with. This is a committee of the National Assembly, founded in standing orders in the law and in the Constitution, to vet or conduct confirmation hearings on all nominees for cabinet positions. The idea is to find your suitability or otherwise to hold office that His Excellency has nominated you to as a minister. We'll engage with you in a manner that is cordial but firm. Members will ask you questions. You are obliged to answer all of them. No direct communication or altercation with members. Everything through the chair. Even members will ask you questions through the chair. And at the end of these preliminaries, the committee will give you 10 minutes to tell us the story of your life. Who is Ezekiel Machogu? Up to where you're sitting, and then we'll ask you questions leading to the eventual conclusion on your suitability or otherwise. At the end of the proceedings, we'll give you 3 minutes to recap by telling us your wish. This committee is chaired by the Speaker of the National Assembly. You are truly here, Senator Moses Wetangula. We have members who will introduce themselves for purposes of the Hansard, starting with the Deputy Speaker.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mbaki, and congratulations on your nomination for the position of Cabinet Secretary for Education. My name is Gladys Boss, member for Wasingishu County and Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. Karibu.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My name is Kimani Shongwa, Member of Parliament for Kikuyu. And Honorable Speaker, I have known Honorable Machogu since I was in primary school when he served as a young district officer in Kikuyu. He may not have known me, but I knew him as my DO when I was in class 3.
Thank you. My name is Opio and I, MP Ugunja.
Thank you.
My name is Owen By, MP Kilifi North.
Yeah, my name is Robert Mbuye, MP Kadhiani.
My name is Rehab Mukami, County MP, Nyeri, and I hear you served in Nyeri.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name is George Gitonga Murugara, MP Tharaka, Tharaka Nithi County. No idea whether you actually went there.
Thank you.
Honorable Machogo, you know me. Honorable Kosi, MP Poko South.
Abdul Rahim Daud, MP for North Imenti, and I don't have a recollection of seeing you in Meru.
Honorable Mishimboko, MP Likoni.
Good afternoon, Caleb Amisi, MP Sabot.
Thank you.
Dido Raso, MP Saku.
Abdi Shurie, MP Balambala.
Mmase Mary, MP Teso South. No interest to declare.
Naisula Lesuda, MP Samburu West.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have also the clerk of the National Assembly, represented by Madam Florence. You'll introduce your team.
Sitting in for the clerk, Florence Atenyo Abonyo, Director, Audit, Appropriations and other select committees. With me is Deputy Director, Legal Services, Mr. Michael Karuru to my left, and behind him is a team of officers in the committee secretariat.
Bwana Machogu, I'll ask you a few questions, and as we start, you can see the clock. We want to engage you in 90 minutes, so we want the prudent use of time. Questions, we insist, must be precise and concise. The answers should not be any different, should also be concise and precise. Don't volunteer what you have not been asked, and don't withhold what has been asked, so that we can make good progress. I'll ask you a few issues regarding your documentation. Have you sent us your clearance with the tax obligations to the state? That's KRA, tax compliance.
Yes, Honorable Chairman.
And when we finish the tabulation, if you have sent us copies, the clerks will look at the originals in your possession. Clearance with the Higher Education Loans Board.
Yes, Honorable Chairman.
Clearance with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission.
Yes, Honorable Chairman.
Certificate of Good Conduct from the DCI.
Yes, Honorable Chairman.
Have you ever been charged in a court of law and convicted of any offense?
No, Honorable Chairman.
Have you ever been adversely mentioned in any investigatory report of a parliamentary committee?
No, Honorable Chairman.
Or commission? Are you a dual citizen of any sovereign apart from being a citizen of Kenya?
No, I'm under Kenyan.
You will, apart from your documents, also show the clerks your original identity card. At a personal level, what is your financial net worth?
590 million, Honorable Chairman.
How is it made up?
I have buildings in Nairobi, 3 buildings in Eastlands, specifically Chogo Road. I have another building in the Pangan area. I have a building, an apartment in Mirimani. I have an apartment at Kerereswa and another one at near Yaya Center. Chairman, I also have an apartment in Mombasa, Sansu area. I also have apartments at Ngong. I also have a piece of land which is rightly over quarter acre, where there's a car passer along Ngong Road. I also own a plot, is not built yet in Kisii town. I also have 30 acres of land in Kisii. It's 590. I own vehicles. I own a Mercedes-Benz and a V8. Yes,
They're all within the 590 million?
Yes, Honorable Chairman.
Okay. Now we'll open the conversation with you by starting with yourself. 10 minutes or less. Tell us your story.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairman, plus the honorable members, for this wonderful opportunity. I'm Ezekiel Machogo Mbaki. Mbaki is a Christian, married with 5 adult children. I was born in Kisii, and I went to a primary school in Kisii before proceeding to Nduru Secondary School, which is within Kisii County. And upon successfully completing my Form 4 O-levels, I went to Agoro Sare High School, which is in Noma Bay County. In Noma Bay, in Agoro Sare, I did my A-levels before getting admitted to the University of Nairobi in the year 1976, and I did complete my Bachelor of Arts degree in 1979. And after completing my degree in the University of Nairobi, I was employed as a civil servant, and specifically as a district officer. I was posted to Nyeri, Central Province, and then from there I was posted to Nyandarua. I worked in Nyandarua DC's office, and then after that I was transferred to Tetu Division in Nyeri District. That time they were known as districts, Honorable Chairman, currently known as counties. After that again I was transferred back to Nyandarua, Northern Division, where again I worked until the time when I was transferred to Kiambu, Kikuyu Division. I worked in Kikuyu Division, and then I was also transferred to Kirinyaga in a division known as Gichugu. After that, Honorable Chairman, I was again transferred back to Kikuyu, and after Kikuyu, I was transferred to the Greater Rift Valley, where I worked in the Provincial Commissioner's Office, and then I worked as District Officer 1, Nandi District, and then from Nandi, I was transferred to Naivasha Sub-District. After Naivasha, Honorable Chairman and Honorable Members, I was promoted to the rank of a District Commissioner, Nyandarua District. So again, I went back to Nyandarua as District Commissioner. I served in Nyandarua as District Commissioner for 7 years before again I was transferred in the same capacity as District Commissioner Busia. After Busia, I was transferred to Deputy Provincial Commissioner Coast Province. After Coast Province, again, I was transferred to Wajir District, and after which I was also transferred to central government. In the central government, I served in many ministries, among them Public Service Commission. I also served in Northern Kenya and other arid lands. I served in the then Ministry of Commerce, Tourism, and East African Affairs as Senior Deputy Secretary. And finally, I served as Senior Deputy Secretary, Minister of Trade, before retiring in October 2016. After that, Honorable Chairman and Honorable Members, the good people of Nyaribari Masaba gave me an opportunity to serve them as their member of Parliament, which I served from 2017 up to 2022. I would like to inform the members and the Honorable Chair that India, Mauritius, Chairman and honorable members, during my tenure in civil service, I would like to give few examples. I cannot be able to mention each and everything that I was able to do directly as an officer. When I was district officer Kikuyu, during that time, the then president was putting up a school known as Moi Girls Kamangu, and actually I supervised the construction of that school. I remember the then provincial commissioner Nairobi was known as Fred Waigancho, used to get money. It was like the crack of works, getting materials and ensuring that the work was done, and also expediting payment. When I worked in Nyandarua as district officer, Northern Division, which was covering Orichoro Rock and Nandarawa, Nyandarua then was actually entirely a settlement area, and it was during that particular time, Chairman, that we were settling people from all parts of the country, and mainly from central Kenya. There were no schools, so I acted as a catalyst. Together with other stakeholders, the local leaders, we were able to put up the necessary infrastructural facilities, and particularly schools when I served as district officer in Orichoro Rock. And also when I served as district commissioner Nyandarua, honorable chairman and members, you will remember that during the 7-year period that I served, Nyandarua was #1 nationally for those 7 years, because I was able to work very, very closely with the other stakeholders, which made it possible for us to have #1 countrywide for the 7 years. Actually, in 1993, I was given a trophy by the then president as being the best overall district.
in our challenging time, in our difficult times, in our times that we are down, we need to look upon the Lord. And David said, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Who shall I be afraid of? David realizes that God is his strength. If I wonder what it means for God as our strength, it means that God is there to support us. God is there to offer support. When we are weak, when we are tired and about to give up, we can always turn to God and obtain strength from him. In our challenging time, in our difficult times, in our times
going to put in place to ensure that at the end of the day we'll have high quality education for our children. Thank you.
Ezekiel will take batches of 4 questions in a row, then you can be able to respond. So you just note the questions. Kimani Chungwa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Ask it your DO question.
Yes, as I indicated, he was a very diligent DO. I was very young, only in class 3 when he served as DO in Kikuyu, but he was also a good friend to my father. And it's indeed true. He was instrumental in the construction of Moi Girls Kamango, and we appreciate. But CS nominee Honorable Machogu, I don't repeat what the Honorable Sholay has asked about the working party for review of the many things in the education sector, including the CBC to university education. But I really want to dwell on university education because, Honorable Machogu, you are aware that government is paying for government-sponsored students in private universities. But there exists a cartel in the Ministry of Education and private university players that influences how COOPS, the Kenya Colleges and University Placement Services, places students in either public or private universities. I'm sure by now you're aware that a number of our public universities, including premier institutions like the University of Nairobi, are financially they're on their deathbed. Moi University is almost collapsing. Egerton University is in ICU. If you go to Murang'a University, it has no students. Karatina University is on the verge of collapsing. Anywhere, Bondo University, even Kisii University in your own county, and these are public institutions. But they're collapsing at a time when government is spending billions of shillings sponsoring students in private universities. I would want to hear what you plan to do to dismantle the cartels that influence the placement of students in a very lopsided way. If you check your records at the ministry, maybe if approved and you settle in, you realize one private university in the last 1 year has more students placed to them than Kenyatta and Nairobi University combined as a private university. You also realize maybe when you settle down, there was a program that was called the Teacher Professional Development Program that trains teachers. Teachers are asked to pay a sum of 6,000 shillings, and I've seen there was a petition in the last parliament where teachers were appealing that this be opened up to more universities so that teachers are able to access this program in universities that are nearer to them, and in many areas, public universities. But again, you realize that program was designed by those cartels in the ministry working together again with people in private universities to make sure that one university, again, the way the program was designed was to basically favor one private university at the expense of public universities and at a great cost to teachers, because teachers are being asked to pay, and the petition, I think, was asking the government to help them with part of the 6,000 shillings, and they pay part of it and also open it up to other public universities. You can imagine many teachers in this country were trained by through the teachers who taught us UON, and Kenyatta University. Though are never included in this program. I would also want to hear your views on how you will deal with those. Lastly, Honorable Machogu, is on the fair allocation of resources in the Ministry of Education, especially infrastructure money that is appropriated by this House to help build infrastructure. You know, the last 2 years, the Ministry of Education has allocated resources towards the construction of classrooms. I would invite you to visit a school by the name Karai Day Secondary School in my constituency, or 5 minutes from here, the new HGM Secondary, where I built classrooms, about 15 classrooms and laboratories and offices at a cost of about 30 million shillings. The ministry has come and built one classroom at a cost of over 2 million shillings. The 15 classrooms are all not in use, and the ministry is building a new classroom apparently for the, what is it called, the new junior secondary school. What are you going to do to ensure that you rationalize how the Ministry of Education, because from the budget committee, I can tell you this is a ministry that gobbles up the largest portion of our budget. But how these resources end up being used is either a duplication of what members of parliament are doing using CDF. They have no reference to members of parliament. You go and find a classroom being built at a cost double what the member of parliament is doing at the constituency level. And when we raised the issue here, you remember the ministry was adamant that those resources cannot go to CDF or through the members of parliament. And it is the corruption cartels that persist in the ministry. I would really want to hear what you intend to do to deal with those cartels that exist in the Ministry of Education, including either recovery of the monies that were paid through the Ruaraka land theft, which happened at the Ministry of Education to the tune of almost 1.5 billion shillings. That was public money paying for a public school's land. I would want to hear, because it still exists as an audit query, since Parliament never approved it, what you would intend to do, and especially considering that the minister then hailed from your neighboring county of Nyamira. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. I'll be very brief. Honorable Machogu, I wanted to ask some question here, but from the history you've given us, it would appear that you are only deputy PC in Coast. Because during my research on you, I had come across a Mr. Machogu, who was a DC in Mombasa in 2003, who was charged in an anti-corruption court with the offense of misleading a tender board to award a 166 million road contract. Could that have been you?
That is me.
Ah, good. Very good. Yes, so if it was you, then you may want to help us understand how the matter ended, or the status of the matter as you speak. Two,
what did you say was the charge?
The charge was misleading a tender board to award a shillings 166 million road contract in 2003.
Okay.
Then my research didn't mislead me. Two is the issue of teachers' employment. You know, during the campaigns, my coalition, the Azimio, had undertaken, upon assuming the reins of power, to employ all untrained, all trained teachers who are unemployed. I had a similar, more or less similar commitment. Indeed, it did sign a contract with or some kind of agreement with the teachers that it would also employ these unemployed teachers but are trained. So my question is, how soon, if and when you get lucky to be approved by Parliament, how soon should you expect a supplementary budget from you to enable you employ all these unemployed but trained teachers and to empower TSC to undertake its mandate effectively? Last is the issue of Egerton University specifically. that university is in a sorry state. The lecturers have been on strike now for I don't know how many years, since 20 whatever, and they have been on half pay since the middle of 2020. What urgent measures will you be taking to solve that university, which is very critical for our national development? Thank you.
Robert.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Chair, you know, this country, we pride ourselves in saying that we have free primary education, and I've also heard of free secondary education. But the reality is that parents have to keep paying for teachers, they pay for examinations, they pay for activities. They are constantly going into their pockets to make payments. And you know, this is one of the reasons why a lot of our children are constantly on the roads, going back home to pick money so that they can attend classes, which is against the Basic Education Act. Now, I think in the 11th Parliament, when C.S. Matiang'i was the Minister for Education, I had asked a question concerning that, and the Minister indicated that no one is supposed to be, no principal, no head teacher is supposed to charge any levies without approval from the office of the minister. Now, we know, all of us, that this continues happening all over the country. How are you going to solve this problem once and for all, so that our children can remain in school from January to December?
Finish with your side.
Okay. Ezekiel, I have two very short questions. One, there are a lot of secondary schools that have been built using CDF. A lot of them, probably you when you are MP, nearly built new ones. But the ministry, especially during Magoha's time, he refused to register secondary schools. And those schools are there. Kids are gone through Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, Form 4, but they have to do exams in another school because that school has not been registered, because there is a moratorium that you cannot register new schools. Yet population in this country keeps on increasing. New kids want to reduce distance from home to school, but the ministry has been an impediment towards registration of new schools. What are you going to do about that? And secondly, I want to also talk about universities just a little bit. Usually universities receive expenditure estimates from the budget, and they are allocated 100 million, but the ministry only ends up sending 30 million to that university. The rest of the money, we do not know where the money is going. Universities are collapsing in this country. As you take leadership in that ministry, I hope you will not be that one who only goes to primary schools, a professor who goes to primary schools and supervises primary schools and leaves universities to die. What are you going to do to give the universities in this country a new face, a new energy, and a new eager? And then lastly, on the issue of the sweeping laws, which were actually withdrawn at Parliament, where minister wants to appoint vice chancellors, he wants to be in charge of all universities in this country. Do you still want to bring these laws, or will you withdraw them? Will you give vice chancellors an opportunity to manage universities without interference, and stop sending girlfriends to be members of council of universities? Thank you.
Yes, you can. Ezekiel, answer those 5
Thank you.
Interventions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairman and honorable members. I know it is the concern of each and every parent in this country about the new system of CPC, and people are anxious. And of course, because of that anxiety and the concerns voiced by the many Kenyans about this system, it was within the wisdom of His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, to appoint a presidential working party with very clear terms of reference, so that they can be able to get views and comments from each and every Kenyan, such that once they have been able to come with a clear recommendation, then as government and Minister for Education, I will be able to get a roadmap. Of course, the way Madam has said, Honorable Madam, it is clear that parents
sometimes are complaining of the expense, that it is a system which is capital intensive, such that they are required to buy so many things. And this administration in particular, I want to assure members, will not like anything that is going to be so costly to their parents, because education, according to Article 53(1)(b), is supposed to be free and compulsory, basic, that is primary and secondary. So once I get the recommendations of the task force, this is one of the areas that I'm sure they will be able to come up with, such that it is made manageable, because Kenyans, with the COVID and the economy the way it is as of now, parents might not be able to afford certain things as it is indicated in the CPC curriculum. The teachers have also, I was checking, they undertook an induction course of about 1 week. 1 week might not be able to be enough for them to understand the content of the curriculum the way it is, because this is subject-based, and I think the kind of induction that they were taken through was not subject-based. So another opportunity, probably once the task force also goes around, has to be given the teachers, and I'm sure among the people who will be able to give their views on this particular area will be teachers, so that teachers can be able to give their comments, and the task force will be able to consider which time and which time frame will be enough for teachers to be able to understand and comprehend this curriculum. We want to ensure that there is high quality, because one other thing that the task force has to look at is the assessment, because you know this has been categorized into two. There is what they call formative. Formative is the continuous assessment, such that when one is in grade 4, they are graded and given 20 marks. When he's in grade 5 and 6, equally 20, which now makes a total of 60, and then that now a continuous assessment. How regulated is it? What instruments of measurement are used so that we know the measurement is right at that particular level? And this is one of the areas that the task force will be able to look at, so that we ensure of quality of education from this level. And also summative, of course, now comprises of 40% of what they are supposed to be tested on. University capitation, yes, as members have clearly indicated, there is a lot of problems in our universities. There is underfunding, there is all kinds of problems facing our university. And Honorable Chair and members, you are aware that government gives capitation to all public universities, and according to the amendment that was done by the National Assembly, I think in 2016, is what made it now possible for private universities to access capitation money. But when you also look at the figures, anyone going to a private university is given, I think, about 63,000, when one who goes to a public university under government sponsorship is given about 150. In a 4-year period, about 86,000 of our Kenyan students in private universities, and of course accessing public funds. This is not a policy matter, but I think a legislative matter, because it's an act of parliament, and parliament has to probably come up with an amendment in case the stakeholders feel that it has to be done. Honorable Chairman, I'm a bottom-up person. I understand the government system. I know the way it operates. And in case there are cases in that ministry, I think it is time for them to start packing and going elsewhere. Because with Machogu at the helm of that ministry, if there's anything I will not allow, I will like value for money, shilling by shilling, and we'll be able to do very proper monitoring so that we don't lose any money at all. I agree totally that there is duplication. In actual fact, if you see what the CDF has done in a number of constituencies, because when I became Member of Parliament, Honorable Chair, I did benchmarking actually in Kipikeron East and in Tinderet, and I used a paper-based contract. So a classroom that I was doing at 600, same size, same quality, you find brought the ministry at 2 million. So these are some of the things that I have an opportunity, and if there's anything I will do, because I've been a Member of Parliament, is to work very, very closely, hand in hand with my honorable members, so that you are able to provide oversight, including even identification of the schools which are to benefit out of infrastructural funds, because I think the way and the manner in which it is done probably is a little bit opaque, and I will make sure that it is totally transparent, so that there is that participation, so that we are able to get a school from each and every constituency, each and every sub-county, and the input for me or us in the ministry level to arrive at that particular decision would have been made from the constituency level. Teacher shortage is real in this country, Honorable Chairman, because I think as of now, almost each and every part of the country, both primary and secondary, there is a serious shortage, and that's why this administration in the Education Charter has made it very clear that in a 2-year period, we will be able to employ at least 116 teachers. Honorable members, you are aware of the very tight fiscal space that we are operating in, but progressively we will be able to employ these teachers, and I'm aware that with effect from January, we will be employing not less than 30,000 teachers to be spread all over the country, and more so areas that are having an acute education. It will also afford an opportunity to those who have not had employment for some time. And we also have internship program. We intend, once I get in the ministry, to institutionalize this system of interns, because it is a little bit cheaper, affordable, such that once one serves as an intern for some time, from there we can also be able to give him or her an opportunity of getting permanent employment. Honorable Chair, I am aware about what is happening in Egerton University and many other universities, and once you give me that permission to get into office, because it's you, Honorable Chair, and the honorable members here, I will be able to look at this particular issue, because I know there are CPS which were made, and there are 2 categories of CPS that universities make. One, that all the universities make, dealing with the salaries and dealing with a few other things. Others are made by individual universities. The last one was made, I think, 2017 to 2021. It's supposed to be 4-year period. So there are areas that I think a lot of negotiation a lot of mediation has to be done so that we are able to get a way forward, so that we don't allow that Egerton University, which one time had a niche of being the best agricultural and livestock university, to collapse. So once we get to office, we will be able to discuss with the National Treasury to get a solution for Egerton University. Chairman, I also would like to say which comes is not some officers in the ministry will be doing it, but the way it has been legislated by Parliament, that is the body which is supposed to disperse capitation money. I will make sure that in my first month in office, that is accurately operationalized. Honorable Chair, finally, the appointment of Vice Chancellors, I personally, that is my personal opinion, that the amendment done, that Public Service Commission is the one which is to invite applications and to interview Vice Chancellors, and then when they are now sent the university councils, in case of disciplinary matters, in case of firing, it is now the councils which are supposed to do that. I think there is a disconnect because a body that is hiring should be the same body that is actually firing, and is one of the areas that Parliament might like to look into. Even appointment of chancellors. When I graduated from the University of Nairobi, the president was the chancellor and was the one awarding us the degrees. Now, if you invite applications, because these are supposed to be eminent Kenyans, people who have served the country with distinction, and we have many who are supposed to be appointed by the president of the country so that they act on his behalf. But if you invite applications, I'm sure that you are not going to get men applying. And I think out of our public universities, that tells us why we have only 9 chancellors out of the 44 public universities that we have.
Next round.
Mr. Chairman, did he answer all the questions?
You have not answered about the case.
Even the TSC.
Sorry.
TPD, Association of Teachers of Schools.
Yes. Sorry. Now, when I worked in Busia, District Commissioner Busia, 1998, I was, by virtue of my office, the chairman of the tender board. The tender board used to comprise all heads of department, and it was now anything that a head of department or a ministry wanted to be discussed in the tender board, we initiate through the district procurement or supplies officers, as they were known then. So a request came from the district public works officer. In actual fact, we had no money, and even by the time I arrived to Busia, there was no money. Ours was now to recommend to the Ministry of Public Works, the PS, for the road to be done, graveling. And after recommending that particular contract, the PS Public Works signed, and it was countersigned by the PS Finance. But as it were, about 5-6 years later, because that thing was done 1998, some of these cases, if I tell you a story, if we had the time, you will understand how some cases can be instigated by certain other people for certain other reasons, personal vendetta, reasons which are not real. So a case was actually instigated against me, where people said, arbitrarily informed the tender board that there was waiver from PS Finance for selective tendering. Arbitrarily informed. So informing would have appeared in the minutes. There was nothing in the minutes indicating Machogu informed anybody. When I questioned that actually you have brought a person to court who was not supposed to be brought, they substituted that. now said arbitrarily convened and chaired a tender board. That one count. Nobody ever accused Machogo of anything. So convening the chairman, you don't convene. Actually, it is the secretary, and in that particular aspect, had a letter inviting me as chairman to the meeting. The other thing I had to prove to the court was the circulars of that particular time, that the person who was supposed to chair the tender board was actually the district commissioner, and also to prove to the court that I was not some imposter from somewhere. I was properly appointed as district commissioner, and actually I was not an imposter. So the court said Machogo had no case, and because of that...
Where was the court? In Busia?
No, here in Nairobi.
In Nairobi.
And because of that, government, for malicious prosecution, Machogo was paid 10 million, and actually it accrued interest. So when the government paid, it paid me 14,873,000. I was not a millionaire, but they made me one. Courtesy of people prosecuting cases.
That's fine, that's fine.
The other one, I undertake, Honorable Chair, that indeed the way to go in this country is day schools, boarding schools right now, and the boarding day schools we have over 70%. If we have to have 100% transition, we require day schools. So one thing that I would have to look into, the first month, as you allow me to get into office, is to have those schools which are not registered to be registered, because they have teachers, and will not be an impediment to any such as a ministry.
Very good.
Teachers' employment.
How many teachers?
Yeah, we are starting.
You said 116.
We are starting with the 30, and as the economy becomes vibrant, I'm sure I will be working very closely with the Parliament, because it is this 13th Parliament that will be able to give me funds in order to employ more teachers. But we are starting with about 30 in January, and I'm sure that the figure will be able to improve.
Thank you. Now, this time we start from the front. No soliciting Sharia.
Chairman.
Yes, please.
Yeah, Chairman, the question of the Mamamboga and the Boda Boda parents hasn't been answered by the Kenya Kwanza nominee.
Can you repeat the question?
The question was about the illegal levies, Chair, that have been levied to parents out all over the country.
Chairman,
yes,
Chair also didn't hear the answer to the cartels on TPD, university placement, Ruaraka land. I've not had the answers the Honorable Machogo answering. And I believe he's the nominee for Cabinet Secretary in the Republic of Kenya.
Thank you. Thank you. Once I get into office, the 6,000, because our teachers are doing very good work for our children, and actually they should be commended for what they do. One area that I will look into, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, is this, and the 6,000, and review me that I will be able to take the necessary remedial action. The necessary unnecessary levies, Chair, I will create systems, and those structures are already there. And out of those systems and the structures, monitoring, I will make sure that indeed parents are not subjected to unnecessary harassment, unnecessary levies, and because I'm one of you honorable members, anything that it will be, anywhere that it will be happening, because I will be accessible, I will be able to get that information, if not officially from my officers on the ground, then even from the people and the members of Parliament, and we will not allow anything like that, because if it is allowed, it will then affect even the Constitution, which says free and compulsory, because this is a constitutional matter.
Point of order.
Yes,
maybe you could advise the nominee to just be direct to answering the questions, other than
I was just the microphone
to
tell
advise
that.
him. So because they are straightforward questions. Do you have the temerity to deal with corruption in the Ministry of Education? Are you able, and do you have the capacity to re-engineer the placement of students, or do you even believe that the government-sponsored students, a majority of them should go to public universities or to private universities? It's a very straightforward question. Do you believe the teacher professional development program should be going to institutions that are private institutions or supporting our public universities? It's that simple.
Thank you. Thank you. I believe that placement, our teachers, their development should go to public universities. Again, I also believe, when I look at the figures, Honorable Chairman, because the people we have qualifying for universities, 125 in a year, actually our public universities will accommodate all of them. So it's one of the areas that I think we will have to look into with members of parliament.
Waziri nominee, you help inspire and instill confidence.
Yes.
By not looking into it, by acting when you get there. Is there any justification in truncating Egerton, Moi, Kisii, Southeastern, all these universities, and you are taking students to private universities and spending public money to bolster private universities when public universities are collapsing? It is not something to look into. It's something you have to go and act.
I will, because it is not only a policy matter but also legislative, I will come committee of parliament so that parliament now can be able to, so that we do the amendment, and it will not be in piecemeal, it will be thorough because I've looked at the act.
Okay. Now, we'll start from the front row. Mama Mishi, Daud, Posing, George, Ferdinand. One question each.
Yeah,
and I just want to emphasize, Ezekiel, please just answer the question.
Thank you.
Story mingi wacha.
Thank you.
Yes. When a question is asked, what will you do with the cartels? You don't need a story to deal with cartels.
Thank you.
You'll either deal with them or you'll not deal with them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I just want to reiterate what Honorable Ichung'wah has just said on the issue of skewed distribution of resources. And I want to say it's not only on the infrastructural funding, but also in terms of recruitment to the universities, in terms of the scholarship we get, either the presidential scholarship employ the principle of equity, to ensure that those areas where education level is still very low, we need to put some focus and emphasis on those areas. And my question, Honorable Chair, will be, university graduates used to be recruited by the government to different sectors in the country so that they can be able to repay back the loan. Nowadays, it is different, and this is because of the scarcity of employment opportunities, and that is why it has become very difficult to sustain this fund. So what plans do you have to ensure that this kind of fund will still be sustained to ensure that the poor children from especially rural area, marginalized areas like the Asal, Coast Region, and other areas in this country can still access this kind of loan?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think Honorable Machogu has not answered Honorable Mbui's question very well, because it's not just illegal levies. They need to know, when the government says free primary, free secondary education, it is not free because some of the levies are not on paper. They are just told, students are sent home and told to come with this or the other. The other thing, Chair, is exam certificates. I believe the government has time immemorial said exam certificates should be released to the students who have already done exams, even if they have not paid for the fees. How do they look for a job when the exam certificates are being held by schools? Is there a way the Ministry of Education will give those students their certificates so they can go and look for a job, instead of marking time seeing how they are going to pay those fees? And placements in Form 1. The other day, you get a boy being placed in a girl's school, a girl being placed in a boys' school. Can we streamline that as well? Thank you.
Very good. Bossing.
Thank you,
if
Chair.
you follow that trend, we'll do very well.
Thank you, Chair. I will exactly follow. Honorable Machogo, Kenyans are looking at you, including myself. And there's a question which has been going on around in terms of building confidence. And people expected that the Minister for Education should have been either a professor or a doctor, a doctorate in terms of PhD, not medical, or a bare minimum of a master's degree. When I was perusing your CV, I only saw a bachelor's degree of 1979 when I was about 4 years. And nothing has changed. So what will you tell those Kenyans to build confidence? Because if this parliament approves you, you'll be actually the Minister for Education. So what will you tell Kenyans to build confidence, including myself? And finally, the issue of delocalization. That policy has really dismantled families. It has caused chaos. Even the teachers which were delocalized to some other places, they don't even teach, Honorable Machogo, they don't teach, they're in problems, psychological problems, and therefore we have affected education. Kenyans have suggested that that policy should be scrapped and return people back to home so that they can teach properly. Will you agree with those Kenyans that are saying that?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Mheshimiwa Machogu. This is on behalf of the teachers. Problem number one is delocalization. That has been addressed. Problem number two is the government trying to usurp the powers of unions for the teachers, KNUT, KUPPET, to make them puppets, so that for whatever reason, teachers are controlled and they are not able to agitate for their rights. Number three, the difference between the salary of an ECD teacher, who is required to have a D- or a D+ and a diploma, and a P1 teacher who is supposed to have possibly a C+ and a certificate. The ECD teacher earns 60,000. It's also promotion of teachers, because the ministry argues there are too many. You find that most of them, P1 teachers, will never be promoted. That brings disparity between what P1s earn with the senior teachers, deputy head teachers, and head teachers. The other one is the medical scheme you have.
George.
It's a problem for the teachers, so it is good I put them together here, how it's going to be. The medical allowance, because teachers complained they were not consulted. What happened is ministry scrapped the medical allowance, heaped them into an insurance company so that they would take medical cover, as a result of which their lives have not improved. In fact, possibly it is worse, because this is centrally managed and they have difficulties making claims. The question is teachers' welfare. You as the to ensure that teachers who are stakeholders number one in education are actually catered for.
Let nobody emulate Murugara.
You be sure I'll not do that. Be sure I'll not do that. I just want to ask you, the appointee, I want it to be very clear. I sometimes having a problem with the teachers. You send commitment letters to the teachers that they're going to pay school fees for students, and even make that commitment the date. And yet students actually send away. They want hard cash to be taken to schools. So that at the end of the day, you have a lot of school dropouts because there's no consistency in the school attendance. And this is basically because teachers don't even work with leaders. You tell them you are going to do ABCD, you have it in writing. I normally call it a commitment, because CDF may not come on time and I pay school fees for them, pay for university and what have you, and then yet teachers send students home in that discipline. What are you going to do about it?
Finish that front row.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Mashogu, congratulations for your nomination. I just want to ask you about the school feeding programs. Because as I'm seated here in Nyeri County, the children are not able to go to school in Kieni. Ensuring that people are well fed, healthy, and able to learn is essential to the effectiveness of the education system. What will you do to enhance the sustainability in the school feeding program to ensure universal primary education and education for all, especially in the marginalized regions? Thank you.
Okay, you can answer those.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Skilled recruitment. I will ensure that we do this on assessment of need basis. Areas that have acute shortage, areas that are lacking teachers, those are the areas that will be able to recruit and send the teachers, and not in areas where we already have almost enough. Scholarships are many. We have the RIMU scholarship, we have Jomo Kenyatta, we have Navi Equity, and other bodies. I will make sure that I streamline this so that every part of Kenya, and particularly the disadvantaged and marginalized areas, are able to benefit from these scholarships. Making help sustainable. I'm aware that indeed the funding has been constant, but there has been an increase in the number of students both in the universities and the TVET, and also their own repayment, because this is supposed to be a reforming fund. So you get their own repayment that they are supposed to pay is not forthcoming, not because of a fault of their own, but because some have left the university, they have not been able to secure employment. So this is one area that we will also make sure that a proper assessment is done in accordance to the number of applicants we have, so that we are able to consider the very needy cases to qualify for these loans. Irregular, I assure you that during my time as a Minister for Education, I will not allow this to happen anywhere, and upon the teachers, in cooperation with Teacher Service Commission, I will ensure that these levies are not supposed to be there. Actually, primary school is supposed to be 100% free, apart from the parent only buys uniform. On the uniform. And the other thing that parents, in conjunction with the school committees, in case they find it necessary, another area to provide food, lunch, then they agree on the amount that each and every parent is supposed to give, and that information is also supposed to be given at the ministry. I think those are the only things that a parent is supposed to do. So I undertake that this one, I will make sure that no such irregularities. Exam certificates, indeed, the ministry, I remember seeing those circulars clearly saying that even if a child has not been able to pay school fees, they still be able to be given their certificates. Mine will be to enforce and make sure that whatever circular which was issued earlier, these certificates are given out, because I remember there is a circular, but on the enforcement that requires to be done.
Chair, he's just said, can I?
Yes.
Clarification. You see, that circular, Chair, has been there for ages, but the students can never access that one because enforcement has been difficult. Is there any other way that the students can get their certificates, probably from a Huduma center, directly without going to the school?
Deputy Speaker, just hold.
Yes.
Deputy Speaker has
Yes, I just
a minor intervention.
Yeah, sorry, I have to make an intervention. You've mentioned school fees. I mean, school uniforms. So you've said that the only thing parents need to pay for is the uniforms. But you know that the uniforms are more expensive than the school fees itself. In a secondary school, a student has two types of jerseys, has a tracksuit, then has a fleece, and then has something else, and has shoes purchased from specific a specific vendor, which is like maybe sometimes it even goes up to 3,000 shillings a shoe. Well, parents, they should just tell parents black shoes, and the parents can go to Mitumba and buy it for 500 shillings. So actually uniforms are, so school is out of reach because of the challenge of uniforms. And the teachers are in bed with the school uniform suppliers.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Chair. Chair, can I just start on the uniforms?
No.
On the uniforms.
You'll have a chance to ask again.
because of the uniforms is one thing.
Okay.
Chair, besides being given directive as to which shop, schools these days now are directing that they buy from the school, such that the teachers have now abandoned their responsibility. They have become tailors, and they are now starting selling the same uniforms in schools.
Chair,
you can see of your work
yes,
cut out for you if we approve you.
My system and style of work is that I'm going to move almost county per county, and not only moving around for the sake of it. I will ensure that what the government has said should be implemented will be implemented. We will not allow those cartels where somebody is restricted. We are in a free market economy, such that you cannot say you specifically go to such and such a shop, because then there is conflict of interest. It means you have interest. So I assure you, those are now cartels. And at the aim of that ministry, if there's anything I'm not going to allow, is the existence of cartels. So I will make sure that things are done, and done in the right way. Chair, teachers' welfare certificates, Chair, once I get into the office, and I would like to get specific cases, even the Member of Parliament, because it is all over Kenya. But apart from issuing that, I will try to use all machinery as available, including my officers in the field, to ensure that we implement and enforce the circular, as it were.
You know, nominee, what you have to address, there are two competing interests. The school is owed fees, wants to hold on to the certificate to say, parent so and so, you pay fees before you get a certificate for your child. Right? The child has finished school, must get the certificate to go out there and struggle to look for something to do. Now, as minister, what are you going to put in place to mitigate this problem? Are you going to find some form of insurance undertaking that schools must release the certificates? Are you going to force schools to release certificates regardless? What are you going to do? And as a member of parliament of a constituency, until very recently, I'm sure you know, schools are holding thousands and thousands of certificates of children who have finished and cannot get them to go anywhere.
Thank you, Chair. This is one thing that once I get into office, I will think through, even if it means Kenya National Examination Council
in some of these cases, issuing now direct where teachers are behaving like that, because we have to work very closely with the Teacher Service Commission. Where we find the teachers not complying, then disciplinary action is taken.
Yes. Have you finished answering all of them?
No, I'm answering.
But I just want to add, as an experience.
Let him finish.
Let him finish the answers.
Thank
then
you.
I'll give you an introduction.
One other thing I want to answer is that Machogu is a manager. Machogu has been tested. He's seasoned as a career civil servant, a prolific administrator, and actually what the Ministry of Education requires is a manager, because I will be able to understand the dynamics which I will be able to grasp within no time. And once I know the mandate of that particular ministry, I am able, with the experience, I will leverage on the leadership, management, and administrative experience I have. And there is no doubt that this will be the best among the top ministers that ministry has ever had. Because really, what a minister requires, you are dealing with matters of policy, which I will be able to deal with. I will be able to engage so much with all stakeholders. Ministry of Education has many stakeholders, more than another ministry. I will be able to coordinate, because you deal with the policy, you coordinate, and you get all these other people, because human beings, once you know how to build the teams and to manage, there is nothing that you cannot be able to do. So I have what it takes to ensure that we take the ministry to another level. Feeding program, we have it in 10 arid areas and 16 semi-arid areas. That is 26. We have informal settlements, we have slums, and this number, this administration undertakes to increase the number from 2,000 to 4,000. And I know we are working with the development partners. We would like this number to be increased even more, finally to pro 7,000-8,000, with the funds being available, because it's something that retains our children in school, also improves the quality of learning, because, you know, when they get food, it improves the quality of learning. Yes.
Very important, delocalization.
Thank you. Delocalization, Honorable Chair.
Emotive.
I would like honorable members and honorable Chair to know that this administration has totally changed that policy, and once I get into office, that is my first assignment. We are actually coming up with something we call nationalization, because what was happening there before, a teacher is transferred, not considering the circumstances. Even somebody has probably 1 year to retire, somebody is sickly, and then some of it was being used for punitive purposes. That one, this administration has done away with it. And where we find a teacher wanting to remain, like for example in West Pokot, this administration is going to provide certain other incentives for that particular teacher to remain within that particular area. Otherwise, we are not going to do what was being done in the other administration.
Mr. Machogu, there is Honorable Machogu, somebody, Dr. Hassan, he says he's from Northern Kenya, and he doesn't see anybody here from Northern Kenya. He either doesn't know Sharia and Russell, or doesn't recognize them. He says schools in Northern Kenya have no teachers. He knows of a school in Wajir with standard 1 to 7, but with only 2 teachers. What are you going to do about it?
Thank you, Honorable Chair and members. We have a program in Northern Kenya. Actually, I worked in that particular area. There are 2 ways of working out this, Honorable Chair. One, we have to work on matter security, because we have so many unemployed teachers, but because of cases of insecurity, they have not been comfortable working in those areas. Two, we have to provide a mechanism where even if it is in-service courses, such that we are able to employ the local people to work within their areas, and we subject them to in-service courses. We don't insist that one has to have qualified as a P1 or diploma teacher in order to access employment, because I know and I'm aware that is a very serious problem. And once I take office, we will be able to discuss with the local leaders and the Teacher Service Commission so that we are able to get some kind of permanent solution to the problem that is existing in Northern Kenya.
The next batch, Koech, Amisi, Raso, Shurie, Emase.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Honorable Chair. Mine, Honorable Machogu, and just for the record, my name is Nelson Koech. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, for walking in a bit late when you had started. Mine will be on universities. You saw the case of Kenyatta University. These universities, most of our universities are now reeling in huge debts. Yet they have some of the most prized assets. How will you harness, use PPP to unlock the wealth and potential in our universities and its assets?
Amisi.
Thank you, Chair. There is this paradox that I want you to help me unravel. The first is that you look at the education, the budget every year. It has the highest chunk on our national budget. But conversely, the results of the education is actually still affecting our budget. The degrees holders are on the streets. It still comes to back and get budget to take care of youth population bulge. Second, there is a disconnect between success and education, something that is discouraging even the students, that the most successful people in Kenya are mostly dropouts or maybe just averagely educated, maybe globally, not just in Kenya. That you'll see the people who pursue their talents are the most successful and rich, but the professors and the doctors and maybe averagely or just poor. Is this something that bothers you? And what is these new ideas are you going to really improve our education so that it matches the success and the effort that students put in? They must be hopeful in life that once you finish education, you want to be somewhere. But it is a big disconnect, to so much so that graduates that are burning papers on the streets, they are burning their certificates and getting disillusioned. Some are committing suicide because they see their fellows who dropped out in class 2. There are members of parliament, there are governors. You are being told that you can go to a cabinet without a degree. You know, is this really the education sector you want to build? And is it giving morale to students?
Russell.
Thank you very much, Chair. Honorable Machogu, congratulations on your nomination. Nelson Mandela said education is the greatest equalizer. It is true to say, looking at your CV and your exposition to this honorable committee, that you worked in Nyandarua and also in Wajir. From your experience, those two regions are Kenya, but the education standards are obviously very different. Where more from Nyandarua access higher education, going to universities and higher colleges of learning, the same numbers are unlikely to be attracted from Wajir. If the House is going to give you this job, what are some of the measures you are likely to do so that those who live in outlying districts in this country also, by virtue of getting almost equal education, that they consider themselves as Kenyans. Finally, during Amina Mohammed, after consultation, I'm just following up what Honorable Chair there was asked by Dr. Hassan. She said that those from northern Kenya with the grade of D+ can access teacher training colleges, so that as many of them from the local environment will remain there and teach the local children. Because the experience we have, those from outside the ASAL areas, they get employed, they stay 1 year, and they buy themselves out of those areas. And that is why a school with 8 classes, that is from standard 1 to 8, actually likely to end up with 2 teachers. But also this is exacerbated by the issue of insecurity. Once there is a firefight, then the teachers from other parts of Kenya, actually, they run away from northern Kenya. So what are some of the initiatives you are likely to undertake so that as many as you could get of the local cadre that is likely to join teaching? Thank you, Chair.
Sure.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, and I think the worry that Northern Kenya has is that's why they had to try and get to you, because they're not sure if maybe we'll ask the same question that you just asked. And Mheshimiwa Machogu, I'll just put more emphasis on what Dr. and Mheshimiwa Rasto said. Dr. Amina, when she was at this education, she had a program which was just to at least cover Northern Kenya in the short term and help them get teachers, because you can imagine, as Dr. Hassan said, that there are only 2 teachers in a whole school. Maybe you might have 300-400 students. You don't expect those kids to get the same education with maybe students here in Nairobi. Please, if you are approved, consider Dr. Amina's proposals. Thank you very much.
Mary Amase.
Thank you, Speaker. My concern goes to primary and secondary education, because without those 2, which are the foundation, then we do not need the universities. To the nominee, these education circulars from the ministry, guidelines, directives, whatever, I put it to you that they have been completely ignored. The issue of illegal charges. And case in a point, I want to put it to you as I speak to you, there is a primary school, a public primary school in Busia County that is charging a standard 8 pupil 32,350. This pupil has to pay for a prayers day, has to pay for sufuria. Each child is contributing money to buy sufurias, pay for the cook, you know, different types of welfare, different types of exams. So we are wondering, you've said you're going to enforce. How exactly are you going to enforce so that there is compliance? And as I conclude also, most of the ministry sends disbursement to schools in form of capitation that are supposed to take care of maintenance, continuous maintenance, and what have you. But I also put it to you, a number of schools are dilapidated. And that tells us 2 things. Either the money is being embezzled, or you need to relook at M&E, monitoring and evaluation effectiveness, because something is definitely wrong somewhere. And apart from the dilapidated schools, we also have very good schools that have been run down. We have giants that previously posted very impressive results, like a school in my constituency called St. Paul Samkura High School. It was a 6-streamed school. Very many dignitaries in this country have gone through that school. But today, the school has completely been run down. It has lost traction. It can hardly manage 2 streams. So what are you going to do about such institutions? And finally,
Mary, that's
finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to just remind the nominee on the question that Honorable Mukami asked on school feeding, because we campaigned on that platform. We aligned our manifestos to our presidential manifesto, and Kenyans are asking, when are we to expect implementation? If we approved your nomination, how soon should we have that in place? The issue of sustainability and the issue of how soon would you implement? Thank you.
Ezekiel, we can deal with those 5 very quickly. We are running out of time, and we still have 3 members who want to ask questions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. To start with Kenyatta University and many other universities that are in financial problems, I think we would encourage universities not only to depend on the exchequer, but also explore on other ways of making money, because Chairman, actually this program goes back when the universities, we had Module 2, commonly known as the parallel programs. Universities had a boom, but when this now changed, the entry grade from a B to a C plus, such that they don't have any more students, so they have to look for revenue streams apart from what they are getting from government, like research, innovation. Actually, universities, their core mandate is research and innovation. We want to encourage our universities to get into this, because by so doing, they will also be able to generate money. There is a lot of idle capacity, idle land. Others can be able to engage even in commercial agriculture, like the university that he has talked about. I'm aware it has about 700 acres. So we have to go into certain ventures, and also universities have to downsize to right the size, such that they look at the employees, such that they are able to rationalize in a way that with what they have, they don't exceed and go beyond their budgets. So we will also be discussing with vice chancellors on this, because it's not one university, it's almost all of them, and I'm sure once we discuss, we will be able to come up with ideas that should be able to save the situation. Even endowment fund, where the alumni, if Macho was in Nairobi University, there are so many people who can be able to come in one or the other and assist, and even making universities as destinations in the region. Once we have best universities, we can attract the people from Rwanda, from Tanzania, from the neighboring countries, and by so doing, they will also be able to generate additional income. The relevance of education, question number 2, your Honorable Chair, it is through that education takes the greatest percentage of our revenue, 25.9%, or they're about to be exact. And sometimes we have children going to university, even middle-level colleges, and when they come out, there is no employment, or when there is actually underemployment. So this situation of joblessness, also when you analyze how relevant are the courses that we offer in some of these universities, does the market require some of the courses that we offer in university? So this is one other issue that we have to look at, that we our university courses are demand driven, such that what the market, the industry requires at any given time is what we are able to train our children in, so that when they finish college, chances of getting employment will be better. Education as an equalizer, I agree with you, Nyandaru and Wajir, because I worked in the 2 places. I will, once you give me permission to assume office, discuss with members of parliament from Northern Kenya, because I also understand the program so much, having worked there for almost 3 years. I know that even matter security, because when I was in Wajir, before I went there, used to be a lot of banditry, and we were able to deal with it. By the time I was leaving Wajir, there was no banditry. So one other thing, I will be able to liaise very closely with my counterpart in internal security. We deal with that problem. 2, I propose that we must have a way forward and domesticate this in a way that even if we have in-service courses, and I think Teacher Service Commission has no option in some of these things, because we cannot be able to move ahead when another part of the country is actually lagging behind, and the solution is not going to come from anywhere. We have to have homegrown solutions. So I will be with you in this, and I assure you that we should be able to get a solution. And one of them is low-cost boarding schools, because the nature and the lifestyle of our people in northern Kenya is nomadic. Sometimes they are able to move from one place to another. So establishment of low-cost boarding schools will also be one of the issues that I will be able to look into. Directive was ignored. Machogo has been a career civil servant. When a directive is there, and as it were, if it is from the president, that is an executive order. It has to be implemented come what may. I've seen even orders issued from the highest office and the people don't comply. Because if you don't comply, then you are asking for dismissal. That is insubordination. It amounts into insubordination. So, with the career civil servant at the helm of that ministry, we are not going to have a situation, Honorable Chairman, where directives are issued and the people just ignore with impunity. That impunity in this country is one other thing we will have to deal with, and I assure you, if it is in the means of education, I will deal with it squarely. Finally, we also have 32,000, Madam, I worked in Busia, Mukura was a giant, and some of these schools, Honorable Chairman, my personal experience is that a school is as good as the principal or the head of that institution. So sometimes we have appointed people as principals. They were good in the classroom, very good, but you find they have not been undertaken through the necessary courses for management. So capacity, what we are also going to do with our head teachers, some of them who have done so well but they have not been capacitated, we will be able to build the capacity so that when they are heading such schools, then they know financial management, they know how to deal with the various stakeholders in a school, so that we are able to approve the standards of this school. Bamukura being one of them. We will also be able to make the quality assurance officers, because like in my constituency, if I give an example, I know this used to be inspectors of schools. During our time, you will be able to confirm that these are the people who used to go around schools, and when they used to come and inspect the schools, then whatever they said used to be done. So we'll also make sure that that particular department, we are able to strengthen it, we are able to support it, so that they are able to do the work that they are intended to do.
Next, Naisula. Nikare, you already asked the question. Naisula, and then Mule.
I did that. It was just about.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Please take a minute each. You can see we have 52 seconds.
Okay.
And we have 2 nominees waiting.
I'll be very brief. I just want to reiterate on the school feeding program that as you look onto it, please just consider water for schools, and especially during this time of drought, even if it's water tracking, students are really struggling in schools, and to make sure to understand that some children just go to school even to have that meal, 1 meal a day. My question is also on sanitary towels. I know that there was an amendment and we passed in Parliament that our school-going girls, both in primary schools and secondary schools, should all be entitled to sanitary towels, because there are some who miss the schooling and during their menstrual period. And I know that it was taken to the Ministry of Gender, but how will you liaise with the Ministry of Gender to ensure that our girls do not miss school because of their menses?
Yes,
Thank you, Chair. This is a case-by-case basis depending on where. And this is about teachers and their house allowances and their hardship allowances. And misplacement. Others are placed as if they're in rural areas, yet they are in urban areas or cities. So that is, I don't know how you'll be dealing on a case-by-case basis, because when it comes, then you have to address as it comes, because and I will say in my constituency there is a lot of house allowance which was taken away from some teachers, which is supposed to be. Honorable Chair, the other bit is about the students and their discipline in school. Chair, especially in urban areas, and you need to look at and see how you can help on matters to do with discipline. Within some urban areas, the schools, particularly secondary schools, have become breeding ground for criminals, where people are, they are recruited into criminal gangs, and to a point where sometimes when the banning of schools, for example, that the banning of boarding schools, which have been a big problem in the country. So again, how are you going to address on matters to do with discipline for the children within our schools, especially secondary and boarding schools? Thank you.
Honorable Mulde.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I just need to introduce myself. I found you had introduced Honorable Stephen Mule, MP Matungulu. Mine to the nominee. Why is it very impossible to replace the KCSC certificate for NEC when somebody has lost it or destroyed it? Whereas you know it very well, it is a basic right for basic education. It's actually unconstitutional. What will you do to make sure that those who lose their certificates at one way or another, they are able to get a replacement at NEC or within the circles of education, so that they'll be able to continue their lives? Some, especially when you find some fires gutter the slums. Quite a number of children loses, households lose their documents. But to replace just the NEC certificate for KCSC is a very tall order in this country, whereas education is a basic right. It's actually unconstitutional if we cannot provide that basic right. Thank you.
Ezekiel, can you quickly answer those three?
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. As I said, I will ensure that the school feeding program is actually strengthened. This administration undertook to increase the number from 2,000 to 4,000, and we have a very ambitious program that even the 4,000 figure should be increased gradually to get to 7,000 or 8,000. Water, I agree with you. The capitation money that we give is supposed to cover some of these things. It's an issue that we would also be able to look into. Sanitary towels, indeed, is something that has to be done. I'm not aware that it has been taken the means of gender, but if it has, it's something
actually, I just got a text. It had gone to gender, and gender reverted it back to the Ministry of Education, so it's solely under your ministry now.
This is one portfolio. Once you have something that you are supposed to deal with, it's better that it is in the ministry. These are our children. They require that clean environment. They require to have this, and we'll make sure that this is dealt with as a matter of priority. It's something that I will be able to make sure that I make a follow-up, and there will be no failure at all in the supply and the provision of sanitary towels. House allowance and hardship, this one, our teachers must get what is due to them. Any case where a teacher is supposed to get house allowance and is not getting,
we must ensure that they get. Any teacher where pro is within a municipality and is not getting the amount of house allowance that is supposed to get, these are some of the cases that I will ensure that Teacher Service Commission does comply, because that is what they are supposed to do, so that we are fair to each and every teacher. Discipline, Honorable Chair, is quite a problem. We have had cases of our young children indulging themselves in criminal activities. We have had children getting into substance and drug abuse. We have had children getting out of school and some doing things which indulging in social behavior that is not proper. And some of these things, I think, requires a concerted effort, not only from the school administration, but even the parents. Because, you know, Kenya, we are entirely a patriarchal society. The father figure is so important, so critical. And in some of the families, in some of the homes, unfortunately, you find there is negligence, there is abscondment, there is absence. So the boy child does not have anybody to mentor him, does not have a role model, and these are some of the factors causing all this. But within the school, we say we have to have proper professional counseling services so that we are able to deal with some of these cases. Otherwise, it requires a combination of the school administration and also the local administration, plus the community and the parents to deal with some of the indiscipline programs that we have. I get what Chairman about the replacement of certificates. If we can replace a title deed in less than 1 week, I don't see a reason why Kenya National Examination Council should not be able to replace a certificate in a day, because we should not do things in the old way, and this is one of the things that I will be able to take up to ensure that the necessary action is taken, so that any Kenyan wanting a replacement, it is done within the very minimum period, not taking more than 1 week.
Thank you, Ezekiel. You've answered questions reasonably well. You can see from the interest from the members that you have been nominated to a docket that touches the foundation of our country, our children, their growth, their mentoring, and so on. So in the event you are confirmed, you have to do the extra mile. Avoid showbiz and help Kenyans. We've seen a lot of fanfare in constructing a classroom from a minister when parents are crying about CBC and many other things. Please look at our universities. At lunchtime today, I had a vice chancellor who has come to see me just to tell me she can't hold it anymore because there's no money. And that's the point that Kimani Ichung'wah started with. Why would you finance private enterprise at the expense of public good and public institutions? Those are big questions waiting for you. Yeah. And I'm sure you are up to the task if we confirm you. 3 minutes, tell us what you want us to do for you.
Thank you.
Oh yes, just before that, Dawood had actually walked to me to ask me to give him 30 seconds to ask you about special schools.
Thank you, Chair.
Special education or special
Yes,
schools?
special schools.
Yes.
Special schools are completely ignored in this country. The Education Ministry has forgotten about them. So if you are confirmed, will you take special emphasis for special schools or PWD schools? Because they're an integral part of our education. So do you have anything you know about it, or you will look at it?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Actually, I had a special school in my constituency, which was known as Committee, and they were my children. I gave them special consideration, and in this particular one, I will make sure that I cover for their welfare, because these ones have to be given special consideration. Actually, affirmative action has to be really looked into as far as this one is concerned. So that one I will.
Good. 3 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, for the opportunity, and I thank God and His Excellency the President for also giving me the opportunity to serve Kenyans. I make an undertaking to you, Honorable Chair and members, that I am equal to the task. I will be able to take the education sector to another level, because, as it were, education is actually the major determinant to the success of all other sectors of the economy, right from basic to tertiary to our universities. I will make sure that all the challenges that we have, we will be able to sort them out. And mine is an open door policy, such that we will be able to engage widely with the teachers, with the union officials, KNUT, KUPPET, and every other person, because almost everyone is an interested party as far as education is concerned. So I want to assure you that, given this opportunity, I will also create systems that will work so that monitoring and evaluation will also be done for us to achieve the best results ever. Thank you, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members.
Thank you, Honorable Ezekiel Machogo Mbaki, CBS. You are now released to go to your other duties, and we wish you well.
Honorable Chair, I was requesting, the many courses I attended are not attached. If you can
sort out with her.
Probably they can also.
Yes, you'll go and sort out with her. They are of a persuasive value only.
Honorable Chairman, I have a proposal.
Yes.
If you allow me. Looking at the time, and I know many people will want to engage most of these nominees, is it fair that each member, when given an opportunity, instead of skirting around issues, just directly go to the question, to give as many members as possible time to ask questions? I have so many words to use on a question, but I restrain myself because I want to afford my colleagues time to also ask the same questions.
Honorable Koech, since we started, that's what I've been crying for. Ask one question, be clear, be concise, be precise. But some of us decide to make a speech as a prelude to a question.
An intervention on the same, Mr. Speaker,
yes,
if you allow me.
As we do that, look for the Honorable Ababu Namwamba. Yes, Mary.
Speaker, I would propose you give us a minute or two. If I can prosecute my 2 questions or 3 within the 2 minutes, then well and good. I think that would be the best thing, time. Then I manage my time to prosecute my issues. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Na mtazamaji anayeondoka kwenye mbele ya jopo ama mbele ya kamati ya uteuzi ya bunge la kitaifa ni Ezekiel Machogu, ambaye alikuwa anapigwa msasa baada ya kupata uteuzi katika wizara ya elimu, ambapo anatarajiwa, iwapo bunge litampitisha ama bunge litamwona anafaa kukalia kiti hicho, basi ataweza kuchukua nafasi yake Profesa George Magoha, ambaye ndiye sasa waziri wa elimu. Machogu hapo